Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 2. Now let's start the fanfic. Kakashi looked down his arm and at who it wasn't or rather who it was. Hinata was dreaming. No, dreaming wasn't the right word, not even close. She was reliving the most disturbing moment of her life. Naruto had been gone for about 2 weeks and for the whole 2 weeks the feeling of dread hadn't left her. Hinata and Naruto had been together for a few months now when the mission had came up. He had been prepared, but Hinata still had an awful feeling. The feeling had grown steadily worse as the days went by and she could do nothing but remembering his and Sakura's shrinking backs as they left into what the midnight-haired 17-year-old prayed wouldn't be their utter demise. Thankfully, however, they had returned, but they weren't the same. She ran to the village gates the moment she heard that the duo had made it back, but what met her was a harsh reality. Naruto had wounds everywhere and his clothes were torn and dirty. Blood matted his hair and stained his skin. What really shocked her though were the tears. In all of the years that she had known him, she had never seen him cry like that. Naruto wasn't supposed to cry, he was like the sky, her shining sun. The light beacon in a dark and shadowed world. And now he was crying. What happened? Why is he crying? Naruto still hadn't noticed her as she silently came to a stop a few feet off to the side from him. Tsunade was standing in front of the blonde trying to console him. It did not appear to be working. Tsunade-sama, what happy? She broke off as Naruto's head quickly snapped up to meet her gaze, and the look she received shook her to her core. He was petrified. There was no other was to describe it. The blonde eyes went wide, more tears leaked out of those blue orbs. He looked like a pinned animal as he shifted his weight onto his right leg before spinning on his heel and dashing towards some unknown destination. Just as she was about to follow him, Hinata felt trembling but firm hand on her shoulder. Wait, Hinata. The young woman turned to look at her Hokage. Tsunade-sama. The elder had a distressed and sorrowful look on her face as she continued. Not everything had gone as planned on the mission. And before you jump to conclusions, Sakura is fine, she's in the hospital at the moment. Listen before you go off demanding answers, please be gentle with him, he's fragile right now. He will tell you when he's ready. Hinata nodded solemnly before bounding off with her Byakugan already activated in hopes of finding him quickly. 5 minutes later she landed in a clearing not far from Training Ground 7. Naruto was currently sitting in the fetal position. His shoulders shaking with some unbearable emotion. It hurt her just to watch. Approaching him slowly, afraid to make him run again, she slowly sat next to him. She didn't say anything, just softly ran her fingers through his hair and down his arms and back, hoping to soothe him. After a few moments, Naruto stopped shaking and eased himself out of the fetal position before scooping his startled girlfriend into his lap and burying his face into her shoulder. Though surprised at his sudden actions, Hinata continued to play with his hair as she felt a few wet tears run across her shoulder and hot breath on her neck. A few more moments passed before he began to speak. I killed him, Hinata. I killed him. Though she was slightly shocked at this statement, she kept up with her ministrations while saying, what happened? Holding her tight, Naruto whispered, he almost killed Sakura, Hinata. I couldn't let him do that. I just got so angry. He threw her around like a rag doll and played with her. I couldn't stand for that. So I killed him. With my own hands. I killed Sasuke. Not asking for more, Hinata just shushed him and started to rock back and forth. Eventually Naruto regained his composure enough to stand and they both walked hand in hand back to his apartment, and Hinata knew one thing for sure. Never again did she want to see Naruto like that. Never again did she want to look into his eyes and see him terrified of himself and what he had done. Never again would she leave his side. I promise you that. Hinata jolted awake covered in a cold sweat. No matter how hard she tried, and add the fact that the horrible feeling in her stomach was identical to the one in her dream and memories, that dream was once again haunting her. Still those eyes lingered in the back of her mind. Those terrified glassy blue eyes. Naruto's team had been at Chizuna's for a night now, and Inari had yet to make an appearance. Naruto supposed that was because of the hour they got in at. It had been rather late, and now it was rather early. In any case, he was contemplating in the kitchen at about 7 a.m. when Tsunami walked in. Oh, Naruto. You startled me. I wasn't expecting anyone to be up yet. Indeed, she did look rather startled. Nonetheless, Naruto calmly replied, "Sorry, Tsunami-san, but can I ask why you are up this early?" With a kind smile, the woman walked to the stove before answering, "Please, just Tsunami. No need to be so formal, especially when you brought my father back to us. I can't thank you enough. And as for why I'm up, let's just say that everyone needs to eat, nay." Naruto chuckled lightly before asking, "Need any help?" An hour later, everyone was seated around the table. Well, everyone except for Kakashi, he was still sleeping. Chatter was light as they all ate their breakfast, at least, and was before Inari suddenly had a small outburst. "Who do you people think you are? You're never gonna defeat Gato, so why are you even trying? He'll squash you like a bug, just like everyone else who has defied him. He'll kill you." The young boy said this so gravely that it seemed like everyone had lost their voices, well except for our beloved blonde. "I'll tell you who we are." Naruto ominously rose to his feet before continuing. "We are Konoha Shinobi and we fight for the good of the world. I will not quit just because some little brat like you tells me to. One day, in my village, I'm going to be Hokage, and this is my first step towards it. We will defeat Gato. You just watch." He silently disappeared from the room, leaving everyone shocked. Inari stomped out soon after. Sakura looked back and forth from the door to where they had been sitting. What just happened here? No one could answer. Naruto was sitting on the roof waiting for Kakashi to wake up. "Well, I hope that will turn out all right. Wasn't it the exact same as last time? I mean, it was in the morning this time, but essentially it should be fine." "You better be right, Fox. You better be right." It was then when he heard quiet sobbing from down below. Inari was crying in his room. Deciding to make another small change, he entered through the window. He heard a sharp intake of breath as he landed on the floor and a young voice speaking. "Why are you in my room? Get out." "Well, I was thinking that I should explain more as to why I'm not giving up." The boy's eyes widened. "Wah." The blonde slipped a gentle smile onto his face before launching into a story about how he was always alone when he was younger, how the village hated them, and how he wanted to gain their respect and be their Hokage. And finally about his precious people, and the most precious one to him of them all, his Hinata, and how one day when they grew up they would get married, and have kids and be the family he always dreamed about. Naruto ended with a sad smile, remembering who he had to leave behind in the future. "I'm so sorry, my little Tenchi. How were you able to do that?" He looked at the boy with the small voice and replied, "I'm not quite sure, to tell you the truth. At first I had no one. I nearly went insane, but then my teacher reached out to me. He made me want to live. I guess it was him that saved me." Inari nodded. He was so amazed. "Do you know what? You're pretty cool." Naruto laughed at the new enthusiasm in the younger boy's face. He hadn't been able to make a change like that so quickly the last time. "Well, anyway, I gotta go with my team now. See ya later, twerp." Inari watched as his new friend leapt back out the window. "Wow, I wanna be like him." "Wait, twerp." Kakashi had woken up around an hour ago, feeling quite stiff and using a crutch, I might add. In any case, they were all in a small clearing a little ways away from Tezuna's. The Junin was the first to speak. "Well, since I obviously lack total information on your progress, you will be demonstrating for me." "What do you mean, sensei?" The pink-haired girl asked with a questioning look about her face. "I want you to tell me what you can do, then I'm going to get you to do a few exercises, after which I will be making pointers." "Oh." The others just took the information with a shrug. "Well, Naruto, you start." The blonde just shrugged. There was no way on earth that Kakashi was going to get the truth from him, like he was even suspicious enough yet. Instead, he gave a brief monologue. "Well, Kakashi-sensei, I have the Kage Bunshin, been wearing weights on my wrists, ankles, and I have a weighted belt, some other wind jutsus as that my chakra type, a few fire jutsu, nothing fancy. I can walk up trees and on water. Oh. I can do chakra drawings in my claws. Chakra drawings. Y'all like this? The blonde held his hands out and began to form chakra. At first it was a royal blue before it started to change the colors of the rainbow. First he made a butterfly, then the sun and a few clouds before stopping. It's a chakra control technique. I taught Sakura and Sasuke how to do it too. Kakashi nodded before turning to Sakura. How about you, Sakura? The girl fidgeted for a moment before speaking. Well, I have been studying some medical jutsu with Hinata. I can do quite a few genjutsu and have been studying up a lot on them. I can do tree climbing, water walking and the chakra drawing thing, but not as good as Naruto. I've also been wearing weights on my wrists and ankles for about a month. I think that's it. She just trailed off. Slightly startled about the girl's progress, Kakashi turned to Sasuke. And as for you, Sasuke? The stoic boy's expression did not change as he rattled off, mainly fire ninjutsu, Uchiha-style taijutsu, a few genjutsu, tree climbing, water walking, chakra drawing, weights on ankles, wrists, and belt, and my kodachi. I have not been able to activate my Sharingan yet, however. So, they really have come quite far without me even realizing it, and for some reason I seriously doubt that Naruto is saying the whole and complete truth. Kakashi let out a long breath before looking at them once more. Well, team, let's just say that was not what I had expected, but pleasantly surprised. Now I want you to demonstrate a few things. The three nodded, standing up as they did so. Okay, let's go over to that pond that we passed. I want you to first show me your water walking. Roughly 2 hours later they were back at Tazuna's. The three genin were laying on the floor completely wiped from the exercises that Kakashi had put them through. The first to move was Sakura, and all she did was roll onto her back and ask a question. Nay, Kaka-sensei, didn't you say something about pointers or something like that? All three tilted their heads to get a better view of the said Junin. Looking up from his book, Kakashi gave a lazy look. Well, I guess I did, didn't I? They nodded. Alright, I'll start with you, Sakura. You need to do something about your hair. It's too long and gets in your way, distracting you, so then you have to take a few seconds getting it out of your eyes, which can mean the difference between life and death in a battle. You should either cut it or tie it back somehow. You also need to work on taijutsu. Besides that, you're pretty good for now. The head of pink hair nodded once again. He then addressed Sasuke. Well, Sasuke, you need to work on your speed and maybe some different attire. The wide turtleneck thing you have could be distracting and could be an opening for attackers. You also need a proper teacher for kenjutsu. I will take care of that. Sasuke stared at the ceiling, not giving any response whatsoever. Naruto was the last to be spoken to. Naruto, you need to work on agility and dexterity. You almost seem like you're not quite used to your own body. Precision is key. Also, a bit of stealth could go a long way. Aside from that, you seem pretty well rounded, although I feel a few other things need to be clarified at a later date. Naruto stared at his teacher. I wonder if he knows. I doubt it. Well, about the time travel bit anyway. He may suspect something about me, but it's not that important. He will find out sometime anyway. I guess, but still. He said it seemed like I was not quite used to my body, and that is true. Well, to an extent, I thought I covered it up quite well. Hinata didn't have this problem, although she was only about 4 or 5 inches taller than she is now, and I was over a foot. I understand that, Kit. Now just deal with it. Grumbling, the demon fox walked farther into the depths of Naruto's mind, giving his tails a final flick as he did so. Well, that was interesting. Naruto. He was broken out of his reverie by his sensei's voice. Wah, I said that you and Sakura are to guard Tazuna as he goes to the village today. Oh. After getting to his feet, Naruto hauled Sakura up, who seemed to be feeling a lot better, and went to find Tazuna. Well, today's the day that the note said. I have to get some herbs for Zabuza-san anyway. I shall see what this Uzumaki person has to say. I just hope I'm making the right choice. Haku walked tentatively towards the clearing. He knew which on it was as he had gone there previously for herbs. Only a few feet away now, he thought he saw a flash of yellow through the trees. Haku disengaged with the forest as he stepped into the open. The blond boy wearing black and red sat on the opposite side against a tree, apparently dozing. Because Haku was so sure that the boy was asleep, there was a bird on his head. It came as a surprise when he spoke. His voice was soft yet firm and low enough to not disturb the bird. Hello Haku. I'm glad you could join me. Haku took a step closer. How do you know my name, and all of these other things about me? Naruto's eyes opened now, and before replying he gently lifted the bird off his head. It was also asleep. How is of no consequence? What I'm here to do is make an offer. What kind of offer? Naruto took a deep breath and motioned for the other boy to sit in front of him. I was wondering if you and maybe Zabuza would like to come back with us to Konoha. We could use shinobi like you. The boy's eyes widened as he sat. He hadn't expected anything like that. Join your village. But Zabuza-san is an A- ranked missing nin and I've had no proper ninja training. We would never be accepted. Besides, Zabuza-san would never devote himself to a village and I will never leave him. Well, Naruto hadn't expected it to be as easy as that. He supposed it would all come down to the battle of the bridge now. I hope it works though. I see. Although please promise me that you will think about it and maybe mention it to Zabuza too. Please, you deserve a better life than this. A real home. Haku nodded. Alright, I will Naruto-san, although I cannot promise you anything. However, I do thank you for your offer. Maybe if I do come, maybe we'll be friends. Naruto smiled his one-of-a-kind smile as he stood up. I look forward to it. Haku also stood. Me too. Naruto extended a hand and Haku shook it. Both offered one last smile before dashing off in opposite directions. Naruto. There you are. Tsunami-san was worried about you. Naruto had just stepped into the house. Only Sakura was there as Kakashi and Sasuke were out at the bridge today. Sorry Sakura, I had to check something out by the village. She looked slightly suspicious but shrugged it off. He probably needed to talk to Kyuubi or something as far as she knew. Okay. Can you help me a bit with the chakra drawing though? I still can't seem to change to colors. Oh, and Inari wanted to speak with you too. Naruto smiled. At least I managed to change her attitude quicker this time around. Alrighty then. Let's go. And have you decided what to do about your hair yet? She just gave him a dirty look before leading him off down the hall. Hinata shivered. In the past few days the dream kept recurring with increasing forcefulness. The gut feeling kept intensifying as the days wore on. Her teammates had started to notice as well as Kurenai-sensei. She tried to cover it up but seemed unable. Hinata. The girl looked up into her teacher's worried eyes. I'm fine sensei. I'm sorry for worrying you. Kurenai hesitated. How about you go home and rest? I don't like seeing you like this. Sighing with defeat, the midnight blue-haired girl rose to her feet and nodded before plodding off for home, her teammates staring at her back. Today was the day Naruto had both been waiting for and dreading. Today was the day of the Battle of the Bridge. So many scenarios had run through his mind and he felt that he was ready for anything that Gato, Zabuza and Haku could throw at him. A few days ago Kakashi had made the connection between the Hunter Nin and Zabuza, so like the first timeline, today was the day. Naruto had left a few of his clones behind today to take care of the two fools that would attack Tsunami and Inari, when they went to the bridge. They had been there for a total of 15 minutes when the mist rolled in. It's Zabuza. It was Sasuke who shouted as a few Senbon rushed past his cheek, missing him by mere centimeters. Naruto used a low-level wind jutsu to clear away the fog while Sakura grabbed Tazuna and got into position. Haha, I see the brats have gotten better. Kakashi. Zabuza had appeared in front of them, Haku beside him. A sneer under his bandaged face. Well Zabuza, soon you'll see just how good they are. Sakura protect Tazuna. Sasuke and Naruto take the younger one. Zabuza is mine. With a few nods all around, which made them slightly look like bobbleheads if you ask me, they sprang into action. Sakura stood slightly crouched in front of Tazuna, gloves in place and kunai at the ready, a fierce glint in her eye. This time she would be strong. Meanwhile, Sasuke launched himself towards Haku. The boy had his mask on and had drawn a Senbon needle as the Uchiha rushed him with his kunai. They parried for a few moments before Naruto ran at Haku from the side, claws drawn. Ducking under the blonde boy, he made a few one-handed seals while throwing a handful of needles towards an incoming barrage of shuriken courtesy of Sasuke. Dodging another of Naruto's attacks, he initiated his jutsu. Mizu Senbon no Jutsu. A wave of water needles formed behind him and started speeding towards the two genin. Acting quickly, Sasuke performed a fire jutsu and turned the water to steam. "Ha, you're pretty good, Leaf Ninja. See if Yuto can handle this." Making a few more on-handed seals, Haku created his ultimate jutsu. Hitoshirezu Mazuden. Isu Hitoya no Jutsu. As it had been before, giant mirrors of ice had sprung to life with Naruto and Sasuke in the middle. Quietly, Naruto whispered, "Uh-oh." Back at the house, the Naruto clones were upstairs quietly talking amongst themselves when they heard the sound of breaking glass and a cry of, "Mommy." One of the clones was sent to go down the stairs to head them off while the others went through the window to ambush them as they came out of the house. The first clone had just made it to the bottom when one of the attackers had shoved Inari into the wall. Whipping out a kunai, he flung it at the one who had done it. "Just what do you think you're doing?" The one with Tsunami over his shoulder chuckled. "Oh look, the little brat doesn't like us, whatever shall we do?" They both laughed. "Well, bye-bye little kiddies, we shall be on our way now." He laughed once more before turning on his heel and going out the door, followed by the one with Tsunami. Knowing that the other two clones would deal with them, the first one turned to Inari, who was currently leaning against the wall cradling his head, tears streaming down his face. Kneeling quietly next to the boy, the clone put a hand on his shoulder. "Come on Inari, it's alright. The other clones are taking care of the bad guys. In fact, they're almost done." And true enough, they heard a few wails and retreating feet as the door swung open once again with the two clones carrying Tsunami. The one on the right mumbled something about being short before informing him that they would lay the unconscious woman in her room for now. With Inari seeing that his mother was alright, he perked up quite a bit. "She's okay." Naruto looked down into those wide innocent eyes while replying, "Yes, she's fine. Now why don't you stay here and guard the fort like a big man while I go to the bridge, okay? Can you do that for me?" Inari nodded, eyes still slightly glazed, as he watched the clone leave. A moment or two after had changed his standing. No way was he staying here, he was going to help. His mother was fine and he severely doubted that any more attackers would come, so he decided to be what Naruto had proven to him to exist. He wanted to be a hero too. Getting to his feet, the small boy ran from his house. Back on the bridge, Naruto received the information from his clones and was distracted for a mere second by it. It also wasn't the best moment to get sidetracked. Haku had already entered his mirrors and was attacking from all sides. Despite all of the training on Sasuke's part and being from the future from his hadn't spared them from getting hit at all angles by Haku Senbon. They currently had needles sticking out of random places and scratches all over, but that wasn't the worst. The worst was that Sasuke couldn't keep up. He really did need to work on his speed and perception. He needed to activate his Sharingan. Looking back on his memories, Naruto remembered that it was during this battle that Sasuke had awakened this power. He just didn't know how. Which brings us to this moment. As was mentioned before, Naruto had, for one single moment, had been distracted. And it was in that single moment that Haku struck. The mist nin came flying out of the mirror behind and to the left of him, sending a volley of Senbon straight for his back. By now it was far too late for him to react when a hail of shuriken intercepted them. Looking back over his shoulder, the blonde saw Sasuke's arms still raised from throwing the stars with eyes both shocked and determined. Taking another look, Naruto noticed with both pride and wariness that his best friend had awakened his lineage. Things weren't good. Sasuke had numerous cuts and needles sticking out of various places. This really went bad when Naruto got a glazed look in his eye. What is the Dobe thinking? Zoning out at a time like this, I oughta. It was then that he noticed Haku. The nin, sensing Naruto distraction, had acted. Senbon hurtling at breakneck speed towards him. Without thinking or anything he could discern in that one moment, everything seemed to slow down. Everything that was, except him. His hand reached lightning fast into his weapons pouch and extracted the weapons, already sending them flying before the raven-haired genin had even realized he had been moving. It was metal striking metal that had awakened him from his trance. When he finally began to take in his surroundings, he noticed the awe on his teammate's face. What just happened? Naruto's face spread into a wide grin as he remarked, "Your Sharingan happened, Uchiha." After feeling his face split into a smile for the first time in a long time, his world went black. Naruto's grin turned to stone as the Uchiha dropped. Haku had hit a sensitive nerve on Sasuke's neck as they had been distracted, as if they shouldn't already have learned their lesson, effectively knocking him out cold. Eyes hardening into slits, Naruto got serious. Knowing that there was little time left but also that Sasuke would be fine, if a little stiff, he got to work. "Have you thought about my offer, Haku?" The nin calmly replied while also throwing a couple more senbon at the last genin standing. "I have Naruto-san, however I've decided that I will stay with Zabuza-san. I owe him my life." Naruto charged up a fist and slammed it into the mirror closest to him, smashing it with brute force. "You know he's only using you, right, Haku?" Shocked at what the boy had done to his mirror, he reciprocated nonetheless, "Yes, but I will follow him to the ends of the earth. Now I believe we have a battle to finish." Eyes turning a slight shade of violet at the edges, Naruto countered, "Very well." Creating as many shadow clones as there were mirrors, all of the Narutos charged up their fists and laced them with chakra. He wasn't nearly as good as Sakura or Tsunade, but he could still pack a punch. And with all of them he unleashed a mighty blow, shattering every and all mirrors, while throwing Haku a good 20 feet from his place. The fake hunter nin landed with a dull thud. Haku looked up into Naruto's eyes as the blonde appeared in his line of vision. "I'm taking you back to Konoha whether you like it or not." It was then that they heard the sound like 1,000 birds chirping. Zabuza was bound tightly by his dogs now. The battle had not been too long, but they were both bloody and sweaty nevertheless. But now Kakashi had the demon of the mist pinned. There was no escape for him. The finishing blow was mere seconds away as he began the hand seals. 1, 2, 3, 4. Only 4 hand seals for the devastating assassination jutsu. The chirping of the electricity began to sound from his hands, reminding him of a time when he first mastered the dreaded technique, as he shouted out the name of this jutsu. Chidori. Hinata ran from the middle of the training session with her father. She ran straight to the bathroom and puked up all she was worth. There was a moment of complete blindness and deafness as the world seemed to stop. Kakashi had ran at Zabuza, Chidori in hand, when someone had came in between. Kakashi looked at the person his arm was stuck through. It was not Zabuza. No, 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 it can't be. Oh, but it was. His arm holding the Chidori was not through Zabuza, nor Haku. All Kakashi saw as his vision swam was a pair of terrified glassy blue eyes. He had acted. Not out of self-preservation, not out of anger or fear. He had acted because Haku acted, and Haku acted because Kakashi acted. And Kakashi had acted because Zabuza acted. It was all a huge chain, and that was how he ended up where he is now. The pain in his chest wasn't that bad. No, he had felt such a pain before, except maybe, this time it was little closer to the left. A little closer to his heart. He couldn't have that. Blood was coming out of his mouth now too, not just from the squelching wound from his chest. His mind was completely blank. Well, his conscious mind was blank. His subconscious mind was working fervently in protest. Demanding why he had acted, why he was in this mess, how was he going to get out of it, and most of all, how he supposed to save everyone if he couldn't save himself. One thought drifted through his conscious mind before the black tendrils of nothing engulfed him in a nightmarish world of the would-be future. "I can't die yet." Kakashi's mouth went dry. His mind went blank. He had impaled his own student right through his chest. His own student. One of his first students. His sensei's son. The last link he had to his old genin days. And he had practically stabbed it through the heart. Acting quickly, Kakashi removed his arm from the blonde. The squelching sound was almost enough to make him sick. He laid Naruto out on the ground, wincing at the gaping wound on the young nin's torso. Behind him he heard running footsteps signifying that Sakura had run over with Tazuna. She probably had already checked on Sasuke. And in front of him was the hunter nin impersonator. The boy slowly removed his mask to reveal a face streaked with tears of shock. Haku had jumped up when he seen Kakashi run at Zabuza with the Chidori, only to see that Naruto had been one step ahead and jumped in front of them both, taking the hit. Kakashi found his voice as the footsteps stopped behind him. Why are you crying? The boy looked into the silver-haired Junin's eyes. I meet with him in a clearing in the forest 2 days ago. He wanted to help me. He offered to bring me to Konoha, to have a real home. He is one of the only people who have been nice to me besides Zabuza-san. He jumped in front of me. Haku wandered off muttering nonsense as Zabuza fell to the ground. The boy then went over to him in a shocked stupor. Kakashi-sensei. He turned around to find his female student in tears, eyes wide as she took in the sight of her near-dead teammate. Sakura. The girl sank to the ground before speaking. Is he dead? Kakashi couldn't bear to look at her any longer. Not yet, Sakura. But at this rate he will be. Hinata fell back from the toilet, covered in a cold sweat, and shivering uncontrollably. What happened? Behind her she heard her father knocking on the bathroom door. He had followed her. Hinata. What happened? Come out at once. However, then clan head was not expecting what he got when she did come out. Hinata was completely white, even her lips were extremely pale. Her skin was cold and clammy. Under her eyes and eyelids were a pale purple and she looked like she had been up for days. Hinata. The girl took one look at her father before gripping her stomach in pain. Her breath hitched as another wave of pain gripped her, forcing her to grip the wall with her free hand for support. As it subsided, she weakly answered him. I don't feel well at all, father. I'm sorry, but I don't think I can continue our training session today. Hiyashi nodded dumbly before ordering a branch member to help his daughter to her room. Flashback. Sasuke. Stop it. The Uchiha didn't listen though. He just gave another of his insane grins as he flicked Sakura off of the end of his kusanagi. The pink-haired kunoichi hit the ground with a dull thud. She didn't get up. Naruto was currently kneeling on the ground, blood streaming from his back and front where the cuts made an abstract X. The red fluid also matted his hair, plastering the once sunny locks to his skull. His breathing was in shallow wheezing gasps as he spoke. Why, Sasuke? Why? This time he answered. Because I can. And you two are in the way. The blonde forced himself to his feet, Kyuubi chakra rolling off of him in waves. Hair covering his now scarlet eyes. The chakra was healing him, but because the blade was poisoned they would leave scars. Because you can. The voice like acid whispered. Louder now. Because you can. Naruto sharply lifted his head, slitted eyes boring themselves into his raven-haired opponent. He spat out one last sentence before exploding the ground he stood on. You're exactly like your brother, aren't you? That struck Sasuke as he spun to head off the blonde's attack. I am nothing like my brother. I killed him, I should know. Naruto snorted. Just look at you. You despicable bag of flesh and bones. You betrayed Konoha, your friends and everyone who has ever given a shit about you. You don't care about anyone, and you were going to murder Sakura just because you felt like it. You don't even deserve to live, let alone anything else. And now I will give you what you deserve. Naruto let leash a flurry of strikes before backing off to create a single hand seal. Kage Bunshin. 5 Narutos came into existence. Each with the same feral look as the original. Silently another came into existence off into the bushes and grabbed Sakura. She was bleeding heavily and was feverish. She needed medical attention, fast. The clone quickly disappeared with her using Hiraishin, only to poof out of existence, leaving the girl a bloody mess in the Konoha hospital lobby. The now 6 Narutos each dug out their special 3-pronged kunai and scattered them across the battlefield. Sasuke was going to wait no longer. If he did, he would die instantly. Charging his body with electricity, he rushed the clones, destroying 2 before they disappeared. It seemed they were on near level footing in terms of speed. Whirling once more, he blocked Naruto's metal claws with his sword. Parrying, he jabbed his sword at the other Naruto behind him only to have to dodge the third with a Rasengan. Mangekyo Sharingan spinning at top speed, he locked eyes with the real Naruto, drawing him into the world of the Tsukuyomi. The outside world faded away and the clones disappeared only to be replaced with a realm of black and red. Naruto was chained to an unseen wall as the last surviving Uchiha materialized in front of him. Pulling out his sword with a soft shtick, he muttered darkly, "This is what you get for saying that I'm just like Itachi." He then jammed the Kusanagi into various parts of the blonde's body, stomach, chest, arms, legs, everything within reach. A while later, Sasuke screeched out, "Why don't you scream?" Naruto's bloody face lifted for the first time since entering the Genjutsu. "Because I refuse to lower myself to satisfy worse the trash like you." Nearly rabid, Sasuke raised his sword ready to behead his once friend. Just as the blade was about to make contact, blood-red chakra burst forth from the boy, engulfing the Uchiha. Sasuke landed hard on the ground after being thrown from his own jutsu. 7 feet in front of him, Naruto was once again on his knees, panting. "You really are a bastard, Sasuke." In a flash of yellow light, Sasuke's eyes rolled back into his head, Rasen Shuriken destroying every nerve in his body. There were no more Uchihas left on Earth. End flashback. Kyuubi stared down at his host. He really did feel sorry for the boy. He had lived through so much and really didn't deserve to go out like that. It was time that he had his say in matters. "Kid, you're gonna live, I'll make sure of that. But first, I'm going to have my say." Sasuke had just started to stumble over to where everyone was huddled when a huge amount of killing intent filled the area. Shocked out of his stupor, he half-limped, half-dragged himself over to his teammates. Just as he reached them, red chakra started pouring out of his fallen friend, who he noticed had a large gaping hole in his chest. "What happened while I was out?" was his only thought before he heard Kakashi shout to get back and hauled Sasuke away from the covered blonde. Sakura looked extremely frightened with tears running down her face, and eyes as wide as they would go. Haku meanwhile was helping Zabuza back off. Sasuke noticed that the boy looked quite feminine without the mask. Kakashi. Sasuke could barely even begin to describe. He looked like his best friend, parents, and dog all died at once. There was nothing else to describe it as. His eyes turned back to Naruto now. He was completely engulfed in the chakra, which was starting to take the shape of a fox. The light from the chakra threw the surrounding area into contrast as it created a pillar of scarlet light up into the sky for about 20 seconds before dissipating in a brighter flash of light, leaving behind a healed but unconscious Naruto and a 5-foot red fox. "You, boy." With a jolt, Sasuke realized that it was the Kyuubi and that it was talking to Kakashi. Ironically, he found it funny that the demon was calling his sensei a boy. Shuddering, Kakashi answered, "Why, yes. And who are you?" Even though the Junin knew, he still had to make sure. "Don't play games, human. You already know who I am. What I want to know is, was it you who did that to my kit?" The demon's eyes were hard as diamonds as they pierced into Kakashi. Gulping, the said male didn't even question Kyuubi's word choice as he replied, "Why, yes. I did it. I didn't mean to, though, I swear." Kyuubi snorted. Kakashi was an emotional wreck, and if he did say so, this was quite amusing. "Very well then, human. Consider this a warning. If you ever do anything like that again, you'll have me to deal with." "That's enough, Kyuubi." They all turned to see Naruto slowly getting to his feet. The hole was still in his shirt, but his flesh looked unblemished. "Naruto." It was Sakura who shouted. With a smile and a little wince, Naruto answered, "What, you miss me, Sakura?" "I'm shocked." Her face turned dark as she yelled, "Of course I was, you idiot. You had Sensei's arm go right through you. Well, I'm fine now, so stop crying, alright? She nodded and wiped away her tears. Naruto walked up to the large fox and had a few words with him. A few seconds later, Kyuubi shrunk to his foot-tall size and leapt to the blonde's shoulder. Naruto. He then turned to his sensei, slightly surprised at what he saw. In all his years of knowing him, he had never looked as bad as he did at this moment. Sensei. What's wrong? I'm sorry, Naruto. For everything. Just as he was about to reply, a sneering voice just had to cut in. Oh, what a touching moment. I think that I just have to interrupt, or I think I may barf. Everyone currently on the bridge turned towards the end of the bridge. A large number of thieves and bandits were surrounding a minuscule man in a suit. Gato. Kyuubi, go away now. No. Yes. No. Not anymore. You're too venerable like this. Silence. Sasuke was the one to speak, and just who are you? The short ugly man with round glasses chuckled darkly before replying. I am Gato. And you need to disappear. Zabuza suddenly seen something he should have a long time ago. You never did plan on paying us, did you? You little. Ha, of course I wasn't. Ninjas are just too damn expensive, and now you're gonna be exterminated. If he could have moved, Gato would have been dead on his feet by now. It seemed someone else had this idea as well. The group silently looked on as an ice mirror appeared behind the smug man and a few needles flew out and jutted through his cold black little heart. Not one of the thugs noticed that their employer dropped silently to the water until Haku, who was on their side again, said, his voice ice hard, that bastard deserved worse than what he got. They all looked at the place where Gato used to be, only to see a few leftover ripples in the water below. They all looked at the ninjas in rage. There were a few shouts of, now who's gonna pay us? And a few, what the hell? Where'd he go? From the stupider ones. Kakashi sensei, I'll take care of this. Everyone just looked at Naruto. He had been practically dead 5 minutes ago, for crying out loud. Of course he wouldn't listen to anything that they said though. To say the least, they were still in shock. Naruto was still in a fair amount of pain, but his chakra was fine, so he supposed he may as well as get this over with. Kage Bunshin. Naruto put his hands into the required sign and created 10 copies of himself. They all got into a stance and were readying themselves for the charge when an arrow landed in the no man's land between them. Inari had arrived, and behind him were a mob of angry villagers with pitchforks, knives, and other such sharp items. Well, ya idiots, are you going to be stupid enough to attack now? Sakura was the smart mouth behind that comment. Apparently she had shook off her shock at last. You have 4 capable semi-unscathed ninja, 10 solid clones of one of these ninja, and a mob of angry armed villagers in front of you. Ready to fight now. The thugs were getting nervous. They hadn't planned one this, and now with Gato dead they wouldn't even get paid. The more nervous ones yelled something akin to, abandon ship, which catalyzed a panicked reaction of having all of them run backwards into boats or into the water. In any case, the bridge was clear in a matter of 3 minutes. The last one tripping over his own feet twice before tumbling head first into the water below. Back on the bridge, Sakura rubbed her hands together, eyes closed, an interesting smile on her face. Well, I guess I put that in perspective for them. In spite of the situation, no one could help but sweat drop. It had been around a week since the Battle of the Bridge when the bridge was finally complete. Zabuza and Haku had been staying at Chizuna's during this last week, although Zabuza had disappeared during the night around 3 days ago, leaving Haku. The said boy had been reclusive for the first day but had lightened up considerably, and you could now see his gentle smile everywhere. Kakashi had also recovered, although quite forcibly by Naruto, who had also explained to him about Kyuubi. That conversation had not gone as well as he had hoped, but it got the job done. Sakura and Sasuke would have reported multiple shouts and bangs from the room they were in. It seemed that the only one who was gloomy was Inari. Sure, he was ecstatic that he had helped drive the thugs away and that they were all in one piece by the end of it, but he still felt horrible. Naruto was leaving, and he really wanted to be like him, to be strong like him, and always smile, and he wanted to be just like him. If he was stuck here, he would never accomplish that, and it wasn't like his mom would let him go with them. Well, actually, he had never asked, and it never hurt to try now, did it? Inari slowly crept into the kitchen where his ma'am was washing the dishes, humming softly. Mom. Tsunami jumped slightly. She hadn't heard him enter. Yes, honey. He swallowed. Do you think? Think what, Inari-chan? Come on, you can tell me anything. The boy looked up into his mother's kind, sweet face and gentle smile before looking back at the floor. Do you think I can go to Konoha with Naruto and be a ninja? Tsunami nearly dropped the plate she was drying. Be a ninja? Inari, that's dangerous. The little boy fiddled with his foot and clasped his hands behind him and plowed forward. I know, Mom, but I wanna be strong like Naruto. I want to be able to protect you and Grandpa. Please, I can't learn that here. And I really wanna. The woman sighed. Her little boy really did want to be a ninja. She was positive that his little heart was set on it. There would be next to no hope on swaying him at this point. And with knowing this, she calmly replied, I'll talk with Kakashi-san about it. Although she couldn't help but smile at the joy on her little boy's face as he cheered and ran out the door. Probably to find the ninjas and drag them back here to speak with her. Haku thought back to the last conversation between him and Zabuza. It was tense to say the least. Flashback. It was about 1 in the morning when Haku was woken up by the sound of rustling clothes and a soft clank of metal. Sitting up in bed, he stifled a yawn and asked the darkness, Zabuza-san. What are you doing? The missing nin turned to the boy. He had hoped to make a clean getaway and only leave a note, but no. The boy just had to be an abnormally light sleeper, didn't he? I'm leaving, Haku. Konoha is no place for me. I would never be accepted there, I'm sure of it. Although you have done nothing against them, so I'm leaving you here. Got it. But. No buts. The demon of the mist turned to his companion, pulling his sword onto his back. You deserve a better life. I see this now. So you are to go with the copycat and his team of surprisingly skilled brats to Konoha. That is an order. Haku looked at his hands resting in his lap. Will I ever see you again? Zabuza sighed. Probably not, at least not for a long time. If I'm still alive by then anyway. Making sure he had everything, he went to the window and opened it. Well, I guess this is goodbye. Farewell, Haku. Grow up well, kid. All he heard was a faint shuffling before a light weight hit him from behind and thin arms grabbed him in what he supposed to be a hug. He heard a slight sniffle before the boy spoke softly. Goodbye, Zabuza, and thank you for everything. There was one more moment before the demon of the mist simply disappeared. End flashback. Needless to say, Haku had gotten no more sleep that night. I hope I do see him again though. And then I will show him just how far I will have come. Haku's eyes sparked with a new determination that he hadn't felt since he had first met the one called Zabuza Momochi. Naruto sat under a tree in a nearby clearing. In front of him, his teammates were doing some light training exercises, nothing too major. Although his wound, for the most part, had healed, every now and then he would get a sharp pain shooting through his chest, and it would hurt him to breathe deeply. He did not know what was causing it, but what he did know was that it was not right. This had never happened to him before. Even Kyuubi was stumped. I'll have to have Hina-chan check it out when I get home. On another note, Kyuubi had point-blank refused to return to behind the seal, taking on an almost mother hen role. To say the least, it was deeply annoying. Speaking of which, the little bastard was currently dosing on his head. Hey Kyuubi, wake up. The little fox blearily opened one eye. What now, Kit? The blonde crossed his eyes and looked up, hoping to see the demon. When are you going back behind the seal? Grumbling some obscenity or another, Kyuubi uttered a firm remark. I already told you and you will just have to deal with it. I am staying out here. He turned on Naruto's head, planning on returning to Slumberland. No, you're not. Do you have any idea what the villagers would do when we get back home? Not even looking up now. They dealt with it before. They can deal with it again. Our time traveler's voice turned into a heated whisper. I had gained a lot more respect and trust than I do right now, Kyuubi. I doubt they would be that willing. Even as Hokage, many people were still quite uneasy with the fact that you were allowed to roam free. I don't want to ruin things before they can happen. I don't care. In this state, you just can't die, alright? Not now. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise before narrowing in mischievous thought. Has the great Kyuubi gone soft on me now? All he got in reply was a snort and a snore. Not exactly prime answers if you ask me. He continued to watch his teammates for about another hour. Sakura really had come far, although she was visibly far more tired than Sasuke. She would have to do more resistance training. The two of them finished, and with a sigh from the female and a grunt from Sasuke, they flopped down on either side of him. So why is Kyuubi still out? Once again our pink-haired friend spoke up first. The blonde gave a slightly sarcastic look while replying, he refuses to return to the seal. No matter how many times I tell him, he just point-blank refuses. He says that he's never going back in. Sasuke now joined into the conversation. Why? Naruto looked down at his feet. I'm not sure. I think he's worried about me or something. Sakura let out a little laugh. He's worried about you. Kyuubi. Then Great Demon Fox. Are we talking about the same thing here? Naruto chuckled as well. Even Sasuke let a smirk mar his face. That's what I was thinking. I think he's gone soft or something. It was then that they heard a little growl from the small fox's perch from Naruto's head. Just as they were about to comment, a small blur of blue burst out of a bush to their right. When the said blur came to a halt, there was Inari bent over, hands on his knees, panting for breath. Inari. When the boy finally caught his breath, he uttered only one sentence. Can I go back to Konoha with you? After talking with Inari in the clearing, the group decided to find Kakashi and talk with Tsunami and Tazuna. As it was, they were now all seated around the table and talking about the issue over supper. Can I please? Please, Mr. Kakashi-san, can I? It seemed Inari was putting up a good fight. He really did want to be a ninja. And that my friends put Kakashi and Naruto in a hard place. For Kakashi, it was because they were already taking back Haku, and that Inari was so young and he knew how hard it could be on both him and his family if he were to come with them. And as for Naruto, I can't believe he really wants to come. He didn't last time, or at least not that I'm aware of. Man, I wonder how many other changes have caused. Needless to say, it was a tough situation. Though in the end it was solved with a pretty good solution thanks to our copy ninja. Inari. The boy looked at Kakashi dead in the face, waiting desperately for the answer. And Kakashi, seeing that he had the boys' and everyone else's attention, continued on. Inari, how about we wait until next year? You can think this through a bit more, and besides, you're still a bit young to be entering the academy just yet. Although you can train a bit here in the year and keep us updated with letters. Also, if by the end of the year, if you still want to be a ninja, we'll send someone to come and get you, alright? After all, being a ninja is a dangerous occupation. You could die at any time. Inari nodded seriously. It wasn't the answer he was hoping for, but it was better than a flat out, no, right? Okay, Kakashi-san, I'll do that, and you just wait and see. I'll get super strong and be able to protect all of my precious people. Believe it. Everyone smiled at his enthusiasm, although Tsunami worriedly. Hey, I remember when I used to go around yelling that all the time. What a fool I was back then. He let out a small laugh before joining in on the conversation between Kakashi and Sasuke about shuriken types. 3 days later found the group in Haku at the bridge, with Inari, Tazuna, Tsunami, and the rest of the village to see them off. Bye, Naruto. I hope to see you again. Bye, Tsunami-san. Thanks for everything. Many more heartfelt goodbyes were exchanged, leaving them close to tears on both sides. One last, I'll see you in a year. You better not forget to come and get me. From Inari, and they were off. Haku was smiling gently. Sakura and Naruto were smiling brightly. Sasuke was smirking. Kyuubi was trotting at his jailer's heels, and Kakashi was well being Kakashi. All in all, Naruto thought, I think things turned out pretty good. Except for the pain in my chest though. Another shot of pain bolted through his torso, and he did his best to cover it up, although Kyubi may have picked up on it. I'll tell Hinata-chan everything as soon as I get back, and then I'll tell her about the pain. It's really worrying me now. Back on the island, someone spoke up. What is the bridge going to be called? Tazuna thought for only a moment before replying. The Great Naruto Bridge. The villagers erupted with a cheer. Hinata stared shakily at her hands. That couldn't be. It just couldn't be. He wasn't dead yet. She could feel that much, but to say the least, she was scared. The Hyuga heiress stood up from her bed and turned to the window. She needed some time to think, and here wasn't helping. The road back home was pretty smooth. Naruto was chatting with Haku, Kyubi on his shoulder. Sakura was just walking quietly and taking in the scenery, sneaking glances towards Sasuke every so often. She did still have a crush on him after all. Speaking of the raven-haired boy, he had his hands in his pockets just staring straight ahead. He must have been thinking deeply on something as his eyes were slightly glazed. Kakashi was, of course, reading his little orange book. I wonder how strong Naruto really is. To be able to stand up and want to fight, let alone live, from a blow like that. It's unimaginable. Anyone else would be 6 feet under. I wonder how he got this strong in the first place. He has slipped up plenty since being on this team, but during the academy nothing suggested it in the slightest. I bet he's hiding more than just Kyubi. Unconsciously, Sasuke's fist tightened inside his pocket. I have to work twice as hard to get strong. If I can't beat Naruto, I have no chance at beating Itachi. Naruto broke off mid-sentence with Haku. Something in the wind had changed, slightly drier, and something slightly more menacing. Did you feel that, Kyubi? The little fox sleepily opened his eyes. Feel what, Kit? The change in the air. Kyubi lithely jumped to the ground and stretched in a cat-like fashion. You're the one with the wind affinity. Don't ask me. Yes, be you. He was cut off as a bolt of pain ripped through his chest. Gasping, he grabbed at the area hoping to make it stop. By the time that it did, he was gasping deeply and everyone was staring at him. Naruto, are you okay? His pink-haired teammate asked worriedly. He managed a weak grin before turning away. Yeah, I'm fine, don't worry about it. They all shared a worried look before following, though no one said a word. Sometime later, about an hour or two outside of Konoha, everybody had forgotten about the little episode and was joking around, excited at the fact that they were almost home. Even Kakashi and Sasuke had small grins on their faces. Sakura stopped and stared at the little being in front of her. With the huge adorable eyes and cute little bottle brush tail. It was almost enough to bring tears to your eyes and squeal your head off with cuteness. Even with all of this, Sakura just continued to stare. After all, it's not every day that the greatest demon of them all is reduced to such a state. Naruto was shaking with laughter. Wow, I forgot how he looked when he did that. Not even Hinata can resist those eyes. Finally, the blonde managed to choke out, Sakura, I think he wants you to carry him. Now she reacted. What? He wants me to carry him? He nodded as he felt the eyes of death boring into him from the fox. He's probably tired. He is on very limited chakra right now. With a look that screamed, what the hell am I about to do? Sakura turned back to Kyubi and held her arms out. Meanwhile, Kyubi turned away from Naruto, nose in the air, and jumped cleanly into Sakura's arms, where he promptly fell asleep, leaving everyone to sweat drop at his actions. Haku was the first to speak. Well now, that was interesting. A round of bobblehead nods replied him. They were now about 20 minutes outside of Konoha. Sakura looked at the little red bundle in her arms. How could something so innocent and cute-looking be such a horrible demon? He certainly seemed harmless enough like this. He practically begged to be in her arms. Just to test something that even she wasn't sure about, she tentatively reached out a hand and stroked Kyubi's head and back. Much to her surprise, the demon snuggled in closer. She gave a small smile before thinking, ah, he must like the warmth. That's so cute. Inner Sakura agreed, although she had something more to add. Although if this is his true nature, What caused him to attack the village 12 years ago? No matter how much Sakura tried to answer that question, she could not come up with a plausible answer. In any case, for now, she would just continue to pet the little guy. He was, after all, adorable. Sasuke had watched this little scene with mild amusement and consideration. He too had come to the same conclusion. He thought he would ask Naruto about it when they were back in the village after being debriefed, seeing as the answer might take up some amount of time and that he could now just start seeing the tip of the village gates in the distance. Naruto was not one to be oblivious to such a fact either. Yay! We're almost home. Come on, hurry up. Hurry up. Kakashi raised one eye lazily to the excited blonde. We'll get there when we get there, Naruto. This did quiet him down, but he now had a spring in his step. Naruto-san. He swiveled his head into the ice user's direction. Didn't I tell you that it is just Naruto? Haku ignored this. Are you sure I'll be accepted into your village? The blonde arranged his features into a gentle open smile, one that he often used as Hokage to calm down the younger children when they were upset. Of course I am Haku. I would not take the chance if I wasn't. This seemed to reassure him, although you could still sense an air of nervousness around him. All right then, Naruto-san. I trust you. Naruto of course grinned at this, although, he noted to himself, that he would have to break Haku out of calling him, san. After taking 2 steps within the village gates, Kyuubi's ears perked up and was alert in an instant. While shocking the hell out of Sakura and giving start to the rest of the group, the little fox launched itself into the air and firmly latched itself onto the side of Naruto's head. August. What the hell, Q? Shut up, Kit. You're drawing attention. Giving a slight grumble, the blonde did as he was told and quieted down. He didn't like it, but he didn't need any extra attention at the moment either. Kakashi then spoke up. Well, are we going to go debrief or shall I leave you ladies to shop? Giving an indignant huff, they all headed towards the Hokage Tower. About an hour, a couple headaches, a blushing Haku, and a few pissed off ninja later, the team plus Haku and a tiny Kyuubi exited the tall tower. Naruto had also explained the situation with Kyuubi, and as a result the fox was perched on his shoulder. At first glance the young kit seemed to be sleeping, but upon further inspection one would see that the kit's eyes were wide and alert. They all stood there for a moment in silence, wondering how to go about the transition they were facing, when all hell broke loose. Naruto, ooh. The screeching voice of one seemingly shy Hyuga heiress shocked most of those in the immediate vicinity. The said heiress careened around the corner only to crash headlong into the receiver of her hysterics. Falling over on his butt with Hinata landing on top of him, Naruto gasped out, God, Hinata, what happened? Sitting up and giving the blonde the worst glare anybody on the planet had ever received, the Hyuga heiress spoke in a deadly whisper. What happened on that mission? Something bad happened. Now what was it, god damn it? Nervously glancing from one person to the next, he hesitantly replied, well, you see, Hinata, I kinda, sorta, got a rakieri through the chest. A moment of silence passed as Hinata's eyes grew darker and the young female started shaking. Naruto, worried that she may be crying, gently reached out to her. Hinata, are you alright? The shaking immediately stopped, and the following moment the air was violently filled with a deafening scream. Naruto, you idiot. The following scene was of the nature directly from a gory horror film. Screams of agony penetrated the air as a long line of curses spewed for the shy girl's mouth. The curses so horrendous it would make Yuya blush with shame. Meanwhile, the 4 ninja witnessing this event up close decided to make the following comments. Kakashi looked brightly up from his book and stated quietly, I knew it. It's always the quiet ones. Sasuke was simply dumbfounded. Note to self, never make Hinata angry. Haku apprehensively spoke to Sakura. Do you think we should help him? Do you want to try and stop her? No, not really. Kyuubi just stood quietly, fur sticking up in all directions, eyes the size of dinner plates. After a few unbelievably long moments, the curses and screams came to an end with Hinata clinging to the shinobi for dear life. Finally she managed to choke out, Do you have any idea how worried I was? After hearing a sniff and a few ever so quiet sobs, Naruto gently put his arms around her. Guys, I'll meet up with you later, okay? They all nodded as Kyuubi leapt onto Naruto's back before they sped off. Sasuke looked intently at the spot the two had just vacated. Whatever it is that he's hiding, Hinata knows it too. 5 minutes later they were atop the Hokage monument. Hinata still had a few tears streaming down her face, but she was calmer overall. Naruto kneeled down to where the girl sat while gently rubbing her arm with soothing motions. What happened, Hinata? She rubbed her eyes one last time before replying. I think had that pain again, Naruto, that deep-rooted something really bad's happening, feeling like that time when you were on that mission with Sakura. Oh, he knew that mission alright. After that mission there were no more Uchiha. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. I was just so glad that you were alive. The blonde did the only thing he could do at the moment. He gathered her into his arms and held her as she cried. Kakashi had quickly dispersed the small group after Naruto and Hinata had left. He appointed Sasuke and Sakura to escort Haku to his appointed shinobi housing quarters to the north of town. The shinobi housing was largely for single ninja who either did not want or could not stay with relatives. After bidding a fond farewell to the slightly older boy, the pair wandered around the village for a moment before the Rosette spoke. Do you ever feel like Naruto is still hiding something, Sasuke? The said boy looked over at his female companion before quickly returning his gaze back towards the road. So you have noticed as well. She gave an agreeing like noise before he continued. Whatever it is, I think Hinata is in on it. Or maybe a part of it. What do you think it could be? He could only sigh and shrug his shoulders. Who knows? He will probably tell us in time though. Sakura nodded slightly. True. Hey, want to get something to eat? Sure. As long as it's not ramen. Sakura gave a slight giggle as they headed off towards the market district. Where am I? Hinata woke up to find herself staring at a cracked ceiling. After a few moments she realized she was in Naruto's room. With this in mind she slipped out the door into the living room. Naruto was currently in the kitchen making supper when two soft arms hugged him from behind. A soft voice murmured into his back, I love you, Naruto. Putting down the spoon, he turned around and returned the hug, I love you too. I always will. He ended the hug with a kiss to her forehead before grabbing the plates and heading to the table. Come on, you must be hungry. Hinata nodded and smiled as she sat at the table. He always knows how to make me feel better. Dinner was a talkative affair as Naruto and Hinata discussed his mission and what they were planning on doing next. They were interrupted only once by a bleary-eyed Kyuubi jumping up onto the table and knocking over a glass of water after just waking up. They both laugh at the now sopping wet Kyuubi as he slunk out of the kitchen to supposedly dry off. Near the end of the meal, Naruto brought up the pain in his chest. Hinata. Yes. The girl looked up from her plate and set her chopsticks down, sensing that this was serious. After the battle on the bridge I keeping noticing a sharp pain bolting through my chest every now and then. It almost feels like lightning to describe it the best I can. Hinata immediately stood up. Take off your shirt and lay on the couch. The blonde did as he was told. Within moments Hinata was examining his chest, Byakugan blazing, hand glowing a soft green. After about 10 minutes the pale girl sat up and wiped the sweat for her brow. She sat still, deep in concentration for a moment before addressing Naruto. The Reikiri struck you here, right? She traced a medium-sized circle slightly to the right of his chest. He nodded. Well, from what I can tell, from the accelerated healing that Kyuubi induced, the chakra pathways didn't heal properly. Like they are all jumbled up together, focused on that spot to create a reservoir of chakra, kind of like a giant chakra point now that I think about it. Although since there is no original regulatory system in place, chakra just keeps filling it. To the point you may blow up, I'm afraid. Can you do anything about it? Kyuubi had returned to the room and was now watching the couple intently. The girl sighed, well, to fix it permanently I would have to do surgery and I don't think that is an option right now. Naruto sat up. What about temporarily? Well, I suppose a limiter seal over that area would work for the time being. However, it would be fragile, so you might have to get one of those mini plate things for more protection. Okay, let's do that then. Hinata nodded seriously and began to work. Since it was such an awkward place, Naruto couldn't draw the seal himself but told her what to do. The seal was circular in shape, about the size of the affected area with a triangle in the middle and runes around the edge. In about half an hour it was done. The seal gleaming black like a fresh tattoo, which it also essentially looked like. So, Hinata, how long until we can fix it permanently? Naruto gingerly put his shirt back on as he spoke. Well, I don't have access to the required materials, so I think until we are able to contact Tsunade-sama. The man-turned-boy grinned. Well, I guess that is just extra incentive to find her then, isn't it? About an hour after their supper, the time-traveling couple found themselves at an armor store. Most of the plates there covered the left side of the chest, therefore protecting the heart. Naruto, however, needed one for the opposite side. Do you see any, Hina-chan? He turned around to see said girl gazing intently at a pair of armed guards. Hinata. Wah. She came out of her trance at the sound of his voice this time. What is it, Naruto-kun? Making his way over to her, he asked again. I asked if you seen anything of what we are looking for. Oh, I think there may be some in that corner over there. She pointed over in a direction to her left. Taking her advice, Naruto quickly stumbled upon his objective. Among the plates were many odd-looking spikes, crazy colors, and something that looked to be made out of snake skin. It took the blonde 15 whole minutes to find what he was looking for. The plate wasn't particularly eye-catching. It was made out of black metal with just the right amount of plating. It would fit snugly on the right side of his chest with the belts holding it in place around his chest and right shoulder. All of it would go on over his fishnet shirt but under the open one. Naruto paid and turned around to find Hinata carrying an identical bag to his. Curiously raising one eyebrow, he asked, "What's in the bag?" Grinning mischievously, the Violette replied, "Think I'm overdue for a change of appearance, don't you? Also, these were the armed guards you caught me staring at earlier." Naruto paled at the thought of clothes shopping. Why, you don't need any help, do you? Smiling at his actions, Hinata gently patted his arm. No, I think I can manage, Naru-kun. I'll meet you back at your place to discuss things in about 2 hours, okay? Naruto nodded and was gone faster than you could say Dadbayo. Once again the heiress chuckled at her would-be husband's antics and turned to wander back into the shopping district. So Kyuubi, what do you think? Naruto and his demon counterpart were currently locked in conversation in Training Ground 7. Well, telling Sakura and Sasuke is inevitable. I can tell that they are suspicious of you. As are Kakashi and Sarutobi. However, I believe their observations are more conclusive than the other two. The little fox paced as Naruto sat in front of a nearby tree. If we tell them, how much should we tell them? Because if we tell them everything, we might be treading into very testy waters on both sides of the lake, if you know what I mean. Yes, I was thinking that as well, although if we keep everything back, they may not trust us. Naruto sighed before standing up and having Kyuubi jump on his shoulder. Well, I guess we should talking to Hinata-chan, then she should be able to help. The fox gave an affirmative type growl as they left. Besides, she should be home soon. The boy and demon were home for about 20 minutes before the door opened. Naruto looked over to see the object of his affections opening the door holding 3 bags. Hinata looked up to see both of them looking at her. What do I have, something on my face? They shook their heads negative. Alrighty then, well, I'm going to change and show you what I bought. Naruto and Kyuubi just stared as she dashed to the bathroom. Women. I second that opinion. About 5 minutes later, the door swung inward to reveal a happy Hyuga. She took a step forward, spun around once, and asked, "Well, do you like it?" And the only thing he could do was gape. Hinata was wearing a full fishnet bodysuit with a deep indigo shirt that went to just below her belly button. A wide black belt was attached loosely to her hips between her shirt, a black short shorts with multiple little pockets and places for attaching her staff, the standard pouch on the back left. Her black gloves attached to her black arm guards with paler indigo designs carved into the lightweight metal. Her hitai was tied around her right upper arm, and in the place left around her neck was a lavender-colored crystal. On her feet were the more feminine shinobi sandals. She also had bandages wrapping around her legs up to her knees with the kunai holder on the right upper leg. Well, Naruto nodded energetically. Holy shit, does she look good. True he was. Hinata had never dressed in such a manner before. She had always worn baggy clothes when she was shy before. Then when she had come out of her shell when they had started dating, she went straight into the standard Junin uniform. After that they had Kia, so she couldn't exactly walk around looking so, deadly so, goddamn hot. To say that he was blown away was the understatement of the year. Then something hit him. What do you think Hiashi will say? She flopped on the couch while answering. I think he'll be shocked first. Then, I'm not sure, I guess I'll find out later, won't I? In any case, the blonde's voice grew serious. Kyuubi and I were talking, and we think it is best to tell Sasuke and Sakura soon. Hinata rubbed her temples. Well, we knew it had to be done, and I suppose it's best if we do it before the Chunin exams. What about the others though? My team is slightly suspicious, but I think they chalk it up to me being around you more. And Kakashi? I'm not sure, but I will have to tell him at some point, and I may just have to bring the old man in on this soon as well. I think Kakashi can wait until after the first 2 exams. Will we tell Sasuke about Itachi? He deserves to know. Hinata nodded. This was something that they had been thinking about for months. Well, Naruto, it's getting late, so I'm going to go home now, okay? He nodded, mind reeling on what still needed to be done before the Chunin exam. Hinata gracefully got up from her seat and kissed the slightly zoned out blonde on the cheek before heading to the door. Good night, Naruto-kun. Night, Hina-chan. There were many things on her mind as she made her way home. Mainly what her father would say about her choice of attire. Another was about what she would say about Neji in the Chunin exam. She couldn't just lose like that again. Her thoughts stopped as she walked through the front gates of the Hyuga complex. This was going to be an interesting conversation, to say the least. She came face to face with her father as she walked down the hall to her bedroom. Hinata, what are you wearing? It was more of a statement than a question. Well, father, I thought it was about time that I dressed in an effective way. The bagginess of my other clothes were hindering my movements. Hindering your movements? I realize that you have made adequate progress in the last few months, but nowhere near what is expected of you. I expected that you dress accordingly. Hinata giggled at her father. Expected? Do you really want to see what I can do? Hiashi grew stiff. She had never been like this before. Very well, you shall spar with Hanabi. Tonight? Yes. Tonight. Be in the dojo in 10 minutes. Hinata nodded. Very well. Father. True to her word, she was in the dojo in 10 minutes, staff in the holder on her belt, diagonal across the back of her waist. Hinata's father stood across from her on the other side of the dojo, her little sister, Hanabi, at his side. Hinata, this session will go on until one of you either quits or falls unconscious. Is that clear, Hinata, Hanabi? Yes, father. They both chorused. Very well, begin. At once Hanabi slipped into the gentle fist stance, however Hinata simply stood there with her eyes closed. What? Are you not going to fight? Hinata quietly replied, are you going to attack me or not? Enraged, the younger sister charged the elder. A slpit second before the blow came into contact, Hinata disappeared. Where did she go? As she was scanning the area with her Byakugan, she felt a slight tape on her back, directly in her blind spot. What the hell? Hanabi whipped around to find Hinata, still with her eyes closed, pointing her staff at her. How did she? Without wasting a further moment, Hanabi began striking, open-fisted, at her opponent. Only to have each strike blocked. After a few moments she stopped, and with this ease in the tide, Hinata decided to make her move. Throwing her staff up in the air, she landed 3 strikes on Hanabi, jumped over the girl as she retaliated, caught her staff and swept Hanabi's feet out from under her. As the girl was picking herself up off the ground, Hinata questioned her, "Are you sure you want to continue?" Hanabi, now red in the face from either anger or embarrassment, retorted, "Ya right. Quitting is for losers." Sighing, Hinata finally opened her eyes, Byakugan blazing. "Fine. Have it your way." The older girl put away her staff and pulled out a handful of shuriken and threw them at various points around the room. Hanabi, however, began charging. When she about 3 feet from making contact, she stopped abruptly. "Wires." Hanabi tried to spin out of it, but it was too late. A soft voice emerged from behind her. "I'm sorry, Hanabi, but you didn't quit." Hinata then pinched a nerve on her little sister's neck and Hanabi's world went black. Quickly catching the knocked-out girl, she laid her softly on the ground. She had proceeded to wrap her wires back up and put away her shuriken when the deep voice of her father interrupted. "Hinata, what is the meaning of this?" Without turning around, she answered him, "I have grown strong, father. I am not weak anymore. I think it would be best if you just accepted that." Hiyashi motioned to one of the servants to take Hanabi away as he spoke next, "Tomorrow you will not go with your team. Instead you will stay here and train with me until I can assess what level you are at, then you will only be out with your team on missions and training here the rest of the time." "No." Hiyashi's face grew stern. "What did you say?" Turning around, Hinata repeated herself, "I said no. Learning the gentle fist is great and all, but it's not the only thing. I believe that I know as much as I need to know on that subject, and I am now learning more with the rest of my team. I will continue to train with you for a few hours in the morning, but that will be all." Taken aback by his daughter's sudden boldness, Hiyashi said the only thing that he could come up with, "I will speak to you about this in the morning. Good night." Smirking at her father's retreating back, the thought to herself, "Oh, what a wonderful mess this is." The next morning, Hinata walked into the dining room only to find her father already there. "Yes, father." Hiyashi shifted to get a better view of her. "What has changed your behavior?" Hinata sighed. Her father always was a blunt one. I was sick of being weak and useless, so I decided to change it." His brows knitted together. One does not change simply because they decide to. "Who has done this?" Getting sick of his attitude, Hinata tersely replied, "You mean who has inspired me? You really want to know, don't you? Why? I doubt you're going to thank them. More like ban me from ever seeing them again." "Well, do you know what, father? I'm not going to tell you who inspired, and I am most certainly not about to let you bar them from my life." Hiyashi stood up. How dare she talk to him, her father and clan leader, in such a manner? "Now you listen here, daughter. You will obey my commands. Do you hear me? Or what?" Hiyashi's glare would have made ice look warm. "Or I will disown you." Hinata laughed. "I dare you to try, father." The Hyuga head was taken aback. He was positive that that would shock her. Never before had she shown such backbone. Instead of countering, he simply turned to the door and began to leave. However, before he touched the door to slide it open, he heard Hinata's voice once more. "Why are you so cold, father? Did Okawa-san's death cut you that deeply? Is it because I look so much like her?" Her tone was soft, yet undeniably cold, and firm. Hearing that voice come from his eldest daughter broke something inside of him. Something that he hoped would never open up again. His heart. He left the room without another word. Not missing the change in posture, Hinata smiled. Those questions had had just the effect she wanted. A week passed and our time traveling heroes began to get anxious. There was just one anomaly that they had to fill in. Hinata titled her head towards her lover. "So, Naruto-kun, what about Team 10? They don't have one of us to push them to get stronger. Wouldn't they be at the same level as they were last time?" The couple was currently sitting under a tree in a secluded area of the park. It was about 10 in the morning. A soft breeze could be felt coming from the west. The blonde sighed. This gave him a headache a few nights ago when Kyubi brought it up. "Well, I came to a conclusion." Kakashi, Kurenai, and Asuma are friends, right? So therefore they would boast about how well their team would be doing. Also, since Kurenai and Asuma are dating, well, will be dating, they have a close relationship already. So, naturally, Kakashi and Kurenai will have bragged to Asuma how well we're doing, which will have Asuma whipping the Ino Shika Cho trio to be as good as us. He waved his hand vaguely. The whole male competition gene acting up and whatnot. Hinata giggled, smiling. She knew that gene only too well. Every man alive seemed to suffer from it. Hopefully, of course. Yes, hopefully. The smile on the girl's face shrank a little. You know that if they aren't, we're next to screwed, right? The blonde sighed again. Yeah, it'll make everything that much harder. And indeed it would. It was barely a month to go before the Chunin exams and they still needed to bring in Sakura, Sasuke, and the third in on their secret if they wanted their plan to succeed. Naruto also had to find Jiraiya, and Tsunade if he could manage it, and bring them back to Konoha for the impending battle. On the bright side, their training was coming along swimmingly. Sakura could now heal not so basic wounds and her stamina and strength was way up. Sasuke was fast as hell when he took off his weights, even without them he was a speedy little bugger. He had increased his jutsu range and was focusing on training both with and without the Sharingan. Naruto's speed had drastically increased as well, though it was nowhere near what it once was, but it would do for now. The blonde's chakra control was up to par with his 16-year-old self. Not as good as it could be, but greatly increased overall. Hinata was up to her 16-year-old self as well, in terms of strength. However, her jutsu base was much larger. Kiba and Shino were coming along nicely as well, they were both around their 16-year-old power. Well, Naruto-kun, when are we going to tell them? Naruto stood up, brushed off his pants, and helped Hinata up as he replied, later today, after training maybe. The violet-haired girl nodded. Okay, how about you bring them to the top of the Hokage monument around 6:30? That should give us enough distance from anyone to avoid being overheard. The to-be Hokage smiled. Sounds good. I'll see you then, Hina-chan. She smiled too, despite the slightly queasy feeling in her stomach. See you later, Naruto-kun. They gave each other a quick hug, Hinata giving the blonde a peck on the cheek as well, before they parted ways. For some reason that day seemed to drag on forever. Team 7 meet up at the bridge at 11, did a few D-rank missions, and trained the rest of the day. For the most part everything went smoothly, albeit slowly. So slowly that when they finished their missions they were surprised it was only 4 in the afternoon. After their warm-ups, Kakashi decided that they should spar against each other to fully get to know the other's style. No ninjutsu allowed, of course. They weren't trying to kill each other after all. The masked Junin, going on that premise, decided to pit Sakura against Sasuke and have the winner fight Naruto. Their fight lasted roughly 10 minutes. Sakura put up a pretty good fight, but in the end, lost. For all intents and purposes, Sasuke just had more chakra, and she had run out. Though her reserves had increased greatly compared to before, she just didn't have as much as the boys. Then it was Sasuke's and Naruto's turn. The blonde decided to leave Kyuubi on the sidelines, so the fight was more equal, if 1 versus 17 was anywhere near equal. They were ninja. There's no such thing as cheating in the ninja world. Nevertheless, Naruto held back. In the end the score was what you would expect it to be. Naruto won. He used a few Kage Bunshin to hold Sasuke down using chakra-infused wires, while the real Naruto brought his metal claws an inch away from his neck. Not that Sasuke didn't put up a good fight. Oh no, quite the opposite. Their battle went on for about 45 minutes. Pretty long, all things considered. Breathing heavily, Naruto put away his claws and cancelled his clones. He gave a small grin. Nice job, he managed between breaths. Sasuke just nodded weakly. Anything that had the blonde chakra powerhouse breathing heavily would have anyone else short of Geyer Lee exhausted too. Both breathless, they wearily wandered around the training area collecting their weaponry. Sasuke's sword was lodged into the trunk of a tree and took both of the genin to haul it out. When they made their way back over to the rest of the team, Kakashi's only eye that they could see was wide as it could be, and Sakura's jaw was brushing the floor. The boys both spoke at the same time. What? Kakashi quickly composed himself as Sakura squealed, "You guys were awesome." A wide smile made itself known on Naruto's face, and even a smirk that was almost a smile graced Sasuke's visage. Kakashi also had some praise to offer. "Yes boys, quite good. Now, how about we end training early for today? I have some business to take care of. Later." Without another word he poofed away. Naruto gave a weary sigh. "Well, this is annoying. Now I have an hour and a half before we have to meet up with Hina-chan. May as well invite them for supper." He turned to his teammates. "So, guys, who's up for ramen?" Kyuubi hopped up on the boy's shoulder as his teammates merely nodded agreement. Once they arrived at the Ichiraku ramen stand, Naruto brought up the subject of going to the Hokage monument. Guys. Sasuke and Sakura looked up for their noodles. Usually nothing could tear Naruto away from his ramen, except Hinata of course, but that was a different story. To make him actually talk before he finished was astonishing, considering that he could eat it all within 30 seconds. Sakura answered, "Yeah." The Jinchuriki hesitated for a moment, and within this moment Kyuubi took the opportunity to jump onto his head. "Don't screw this up, Kit." Naruto silently agreed with the kitsune. "I know you guys have been pretty suspicious of me." Sasuke's eyes narrowed, directing a small glare at the blonde. "Of course we've been suspicious. You went from dead last to being as strong as you are now in the space of a day." Naruto rolled his eyes. "Don't look at me like that, Sasuke. It won't do you any good." He lazily slurped a noodle as his teammates paid rapt attention. "Anyway, I would like to clear everything up. And by everything, I mean everything." Both of his teammates' eyes went wide. "Is he kidding?" It was Sakura who verbally spoke. "You're serious? Cha, we're finally gonna find out how he got so strong." He nodded. "Can we ask questions?" That was when Sasuke decided to add his 2 cents. "Use your common sense, Sakura. Of course we can ask questions." And that was when hell froze over. There was no warning. Absolutely none at all. Her face didn't change expression in the slightest. She just decked the Uchiha Saiyan across the face. "Shinaro, shut up and let Naruto Baka finish." Then the angry tick appeared above her eye. The Uchiha, having been knocked out of his seat, just sat staring at her, rubbing his face. "She hit me. She actually hit me. Is it that time of month? Does she want to know that badly?" Naruto, after taking a moment to pinch himself to see if he was dreaming, intervened before Sasuke ended up swallowing a few teeth. Sakura." Now she rounded on Naruto, anger mark gone. "Yes, Naruto." The complete and sudden calm, the sickly sweet innocence of her voice, scared the blonde beyond belief. Why you can ask as many questions as you want." Sasuke still couldn't believe what had happened. Naruto was going over his jutsu list to keep himself from bolting, and even Kyuubi was a bit freaked out by Sakura's tone of voice. Thankfully, however, Naruto's last comment seemed to snap the presumed PM Sing, split personality from Hell Girl out of her self-made house of horrors. Just like that, she was all sunshine and smiles again. Okay. That somehow made it all the creepier. Needless to say, the boys were quite careful about what they said after that, and Sasuke was sure to always remain just out of arm's reach of the pink-haired banshee. Seeing things were more or less back to normal, since when was the ninja world normal? Naruto helped Sasuke back into his seat, and continued what he was saying. "So, anyway, Sasuke, Sakura. When we're finished here, how about we head up to the top of the Hokage monument, alright?" Judging by the way that they both started shoveling noodles into their mouths, they wanted to get there quickly. By the time they got to the designated meeting spot, it was about 6:25. 5 minutes early, but Naruto knew that Hinata wasn't late. Ever. So needless to say, she was already there. "What's Hinata doing here?" It was Sakura who broke the otherwise silent assent. The blonde paused before replying. She's in on this too. He then spoke to the white-eyed girl. We're here, Hina-chan. The said girl giggled. I can tell that Naruto-kun. Anyway, I already set up the clearing with the silencing jutsu, so make yourselves comfortable. The clearing that they had just walked into wasn't overly large, about 15 feet in diameter. There were odd seals written on paper on many of the trees surrounding the area, presumably made for silence and privacy, and probably would alert those inside their range if anyone approached. The grass beneath their feet was a soft pale green, and in the center of the clearing there were 2 fallen logs. Well, if you two would take a seat. Naruto gestured toward the logs. The 2 genin still in the dark sat on the log across from Naruto and Hinata. The gears in Sasuke's mind were turning like crazy. He was trying to guess what the 2 were about to say. What could possibly have let him get so powerful so quickly? How is Hinata involved in this? Hinata began slowly. I know that you guys are suspicious of us, as Naruto-kun must have already said. In any case, I am a part of that secret as well. The male time traveler took a deep breath. I'm not quite sure how to put it lightly, so I'm going to just say it alright. There was a collective nod from the other 2. Okay. We are from the future. The pink-haired girl and brooding Avenger stared at them in open disbelief. Sakura spoke first. Come again. They both shifted in their seats a little and Hinata repeated, we are from the future. Sasuke finally seemed to be able to speak again as he said in a rather breathless voice, you're serious? Naruto nodded. Dead serious. The Uchiha then seemed to think for a moment as Sakura was gaping like a fish out of water. Well, that would explain a hell of a lot. Naruto chuckled nervously. So any questions? Sakura came back to her senses and her hand shot up. School reflexes aren't ironed out overnight after all. Or even over the period of several months. Yes, Sakura. Blushing embarrassedly, she put her hand down and asked, why did you guys come back? The blonde glanced at Hinata before replying in an accusing voice, well, Hinata-chan wasn't supposed to. She had the grace to look embarrassed. Naruto's voice turned grave. I came back because if I didn't, the leaf would have been destroyed. Was about to be destroyed. There were so many dead already. His voice trailed off as the memories replayed before his eyes. Sakura posed another question. How far in the future do you 2 come from? Naruto shook himself out of his reverie. About 13 years in the future. I was 26. Sasuke then voiced his question. Did I manage to kill Itachi? Both of the time travelers hesitated. They had hoped that this topic would come up later. It was Naruto once again who answered, yes, you did manage to kill him. But at a price. What kind of price? The raven's eyes narrowed. Your friends. Your village. Your very sanity. How? That was a demand, not a question. They both sighed. This was going to be a long explanation. Hinata began, well, in about a month there is going to be the Chunin exams. Last time, during those exams, a man named Orochimaru, Sakura gasped. She knew well who that man was. Hinata continued, decided that he would come and claim you, so to speak. You see, he wanted the Sharingan. He ended up placing the curse seal on you. Because of the seal, your darkest urges began to gain control of you, whittling away at your sanity. You ended up leaving the village to go and train under him. That shocked them. Sakura was once again the first to comment, Sasuke betrayed the village. Her voice was that of utter disbelief. Naruto interjected, and that's not the worst part. After he killed Orochimaru and Itachi, he started planning the destruction of the Konoha. Sasuke couldn't believe what he was hearing. He had left the village and plotted to destroy it. But I never even thought about anything even close to that. Ever. To say that he was shocked would be an understatement. Sakura's small voice questioned, is that why you came back? The blonde had a thin, sad smile on his face, oh no. I had to take care of Sasuke about 9 years before I had to come back. By take care of, you mean, Sasuke trailed off, almost afraid of what he might hear. Naruto's eyes lowered, ashamed of what he had done. Yes. Bye. Take care of. I mean that I had to kill you. What happened? Sakura and I were on a mission to try to negotiate with you. When you snapped, I suppose. The fight went on for a long time. When it came down to the last round, so to speak, you managed to skewer. Sakura winced at his choice of words. Sakura right through the stomach with a poisoned blade. You just flicked her off, like she was a rag doll, like there was a piece of trash that had gotten stuck on your blade. Sasuke couldn't help but grimace. That he could become so cold, so cruel. When I asked you why you had done all this, all you said was, because I can. It just made me so mad. I managed to grab Sakura with a cage bunshin, and got her to the hospital in time. She was in a coma for a few weeks. After I did what I had to do, I don't think I managed a good night's sleep for over a month. Naruto was lost in his own little world, eyes glazed over and unseeing, trapped in his memories. Hinata gently took his hand and spoke again. I never want to see him that way, the way he was when he came back into the village, ever again. I'm not sure if I could handle that. She turned to the grimacing Uchiha with a small, sad smile. Although, Sasuke, we believe that you only did what you did because of the influence of Orochimaru's cursed seal. That's one of our main objectives. To stop Orochimaru. Sasuke accepted that. The look on his friends' faces was enough to convince him that whatever power he might gain from Orochimaru, it wasn't worth it. Certainly not such haunted looks. Although, he couldn't help but wonder about something. So, you have more than one objective. It was more of a statement than a question. The heiress looked at the ground and answered softly, well, our other objective is to wipe out a group of people. They call themselves the Akatsuki. What they are doing is capturing Jinchurikis, and extracting the demons jailed inside of them. We need to bring them down. Sasuke, your brother is a member. At this, Sasuke's hands curled into fists, his brow furrowed in rage, eyes flickering between black and red, the memories rushing back. You lack hatred. Become strong to defeat me. You will never be strong enough. Foolish little brother. Naruto, finally coming out of his trance, heard the last bit of Hinata's sentence and saw the effects on the raven-haired boy. Sasuke, don't act like that. Everything that Itachi did isn't as it seems. Now the red eyes were glared in his direction. How can you say that? He murdered our entire family. Seeing that he may need an intimidation factor to make the young Uchiha listen, he let some of Kyuubi's chakra bleed into his eyes, tinting them purple. He's working as a spy for Konoha. What are you talking about? Anger and disbelief seeped into his tone, making Sakura next to him flinch. His tone was that of barely restrained fury. Everyone hung on to the blonde's next words, power and truth lacing his tone. Before the massacre, the Uchiha clan was planning a coup d'etat. Itachi was the last link to the village, promoted to Anbu captain at age 13. Your father and clan used him as a spy, but he was loyal to the village first. Your brother, only 4 years old, had seen the horrors of the last great shinobi war. He knew that, if civil war were to erupt in Konoha, other villages would take this chance to attack, and it would be a fourth shinobi war. He wanted to avoid that at any cost. Now, why did the Uchiha want to usurp the village? You see, the Uchiha were fed up with how the village was treating him. The council placed blame on the Uchiha for the Kyuubi attack, since the Sharingan could control the Kyuubi. In the end, it was really Uchiha Madara who enslaved Kyuubi and forced him to attack the village, in an attempt to destroy it. So, naturally, the council thought it was reasonable to put sanctions on that clan. The third was against it, but 3 of the council overruled it and the bills were passed. The 3 on the council were Danzo, and Sandame's former teammates, Homura, and Kaharu. Those 3 are also responsible for the massacre. Sarutobi tried to come to an agreement with the clan, but once again, those 3 overruled him and sent the order to Itachi. Itachi was faced with a very tough choice. He could kill the Uchiha clan and stop the world from going into a